So Iridikron, the upcoming major threat in Dragonflight. This mysterious being that even Alexstrasza, the all-powerful dragon aspect, mentions with fear. The oldest of the dragon incarnates, and apparently a dragon sealed away a long time ago with an unending hunger, which to many of you might seem quite a bit similar to a certain Galakrond. Knowing that old god corruption was behind this hunger, this might be the first real, old god, full-on old god dragon, a Galakrond and a Deathwing combined into one. Overall, all of this is actually new lore, and with the current old god hints, elemental magic stuff, the dev interviews, we already have some brand new information on who this could be. So, who is this Iridikron, and is he really the new, the bigger, and the badder Galakrond? If you guys are looking for a really cool last minute gift, check out the sponsor of this video, Established Titles. They have legit given me 1 square feet of land in Scotland, which technically means I'm a lord now, as it says on the certificate, as this is based on an old Scottish custom. Best of all, there is an actual tracker so you can know exactly where your plot of land is, and this is done by Established Titles to preserve the woodlands of Scotland, and it is also a global reforestation effort. So not only can you become a lord, but you can also help preserve the forests of the entire world, as they work with charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future. You can officially add the title of Lord or Lady to your plane tickets or dating profiles, and you can also buy a couple pack where they combine the plots, making it a great last minute gift. So make sure to use my link in the description below and use code DORON as you can get 10% off. And for the first 200 people using my link, you will effectively be next to my plot within a walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady of the Doron Kingdom, we can pool all our lands and we can build a kingdom together. So, all of this stuff is actually new lore that is based on what we had known previously, and I gotta say, at the moment, it definitely does seem to have quite a bit of potential for the future. The expansion is going to be out in literally a few days, but we already got a bunch of developer interviews all over the place that hinted at the primalists, future threats, and how the expansion is going to play out in the end. Furthermore, we have the cinematics that show the story, so big things will be happening, as this is going to be a whole focus of the expansion. As you may have learned from the most recent cinematics, the dragon aspects are set to recover their powers and to actually become aspects again, and now they are dealing with this huge problem that they had kinda swept under the rug that is suddenly returning back to the world after thousands and thousands of years. All the new lore indicates that the dragons had been manipulated by the Titans. Blizzard did actually an official interview where they had elaborated on how this corrupted water source had created the dragons, and to put it simply, they said something along the lines of, and keep in mind, this was a really long explanation, so I'm really just paraphrasing this. The waters didn't exactly mind control the dragons, it's more like they enhance the waters so that the dragons grow stronger, and as a side effect, they start following the Titans' philosophies. Now, when you think about it, this kind of seems like mind control with extra steps, but it is incredibly subtle. From my understanding, it's like they had grown stronger from these waters, and that also influenced them that they were doing the right thing because we are growing from this, and they were following the right force. So essentially a really subtle way to turn the dragons to the Titans' side. Now, as we have learned from the primalists, there were dragons that believed that the Titans are just tainting their bloodline and that they're not the good guys, and they decided to rebel against this entire process. Now, in the most recent interview, Steve the Newser explains how this works. These primalists don't exactly start out as the bad guys. They had a pretty legit points. The Titans really were sort of corrupting the dragons, but over the course of the years, these incarnates did so many terrible things that they did ultimately become villains. So really, they kind of started out with a valid point, but then they just went crazy on the execution, so they really became the bad guys. Now, what is really interesting is that just how we have the dragon aspects on one side, we also have the exact same opposite pantheon called the Primal Incarnates, and there are 4 of them. 2 we currently know, Raszageth, that you can see as the first boss, you can see her in the cinematic, she's the youngest out of them, and we had also learned about Iridikron, the oldest of the Incarnates, the most dangerous, and apparently someone with this unending hunger, which sounds quite similar to, a certain Galakrond you guys may know. Keep in mind, Alexstrasza literally changed the topic immediately, didn't even want to remember this guy, meaning that they're not only hiding something that we don't know, but that he is without a doubt a really big part of the history, as it is such a bad memory for her. Primal Incarnates, as we know them, are adherents to the elemental forces, which seems to be the natural state of things for the proto-dragons and really the worlds in general. We still don't know how old they are, but this makes sense as the only true native beings to Azeroth are really the elementals, and these dragons might have literally just been a certain version of the elementals that even predate the Black Empire and the Titans by a really long time. Seeing that the Black Empire had conquered the elementals and after a while they worked together, more like they had subjugated them, there is some heavy foreshadowing that these guys, these primalists, these original dragons, are actually working with the old gods right now, and that they used to be allies of the Black Empire in some ancient war. In a recent interview, Blizzard confirmed that while we defeated a few old gods, the Void presence is still active on Azeroth, and they were purposefully vague on this answer. They didn't really want to let us know what is really going on because there's obviously some spoilers here. With further book hints confirming Galakrond is live, there is without a doubt going to be a lot of old god influence in Dragonflight all over the Dragon Isles. Now, before we get into the details of Iridikron, let's look at one more hint. While talking about the Primal Incarnates, Alexstrasza mentions that long ago they were all clutchmates and that it was the Titan influence that had split them apart. Apparently, a terrible, massive war had occurred, a war so big that she barely even wants to talk about it. Keep in mind now, Alexstrasza is old, like she is really old. She saw multiple Burning Legion invasions, the Sundering, the recent stuff, all the crazy things on Azeroth like we have seen, but like 10 times more. So seeing that she refers to this event as so terrible, you can imagine that it definitely was terrible. It must have been even worse than the Burning Legion invasion itself and Raszageth stabbing Azeroth. Well, after this, we just got this big blank spot here, but what happened further? The Titan forces succeeded in this war, and the dragon aspects couldn't get themselves to eliminate the Primal Incarnates as they were so close to them, so they decided to just chain them up in a vault, which is going to be a raid in Dragonflight, and they have been dormant ever since. Until, obviously, this point. Now, we have already seen Raszageth, that is the youngest of them, but the most interesting hint is this Iridikron guy and this hunger that they talk about. Let's draw a really obvious parallel here. Most recent lore confirmed that Galakrond was corrupted by Galakrond through the water source, which gave him a massive hunger. Turned him into a cannibal monstrosity that was barely put down with a lot of effort and like direct Titan Keeper involvement. Well, turns out that Iridikron also had a hunger, as they put it, and he was also put down and imprisoned. I don't think it is hard to put two and two together and consider that this hunger might just relate to the old gods and the void energies, especially with a ton of recent old god hints. Most interesting thing is that this Iridikron guy was a so-called incarnate of Earth, so essentially the exact same opposite to the Titan aligned Eltarian later turned into Deathwing. Who knows, they might have even bred brothers. I mean, I know, super crazy reach here, but Eltarion, Iridikron, definitely could be a reach, but it does sound kinda similar. Incarnate for the Primalists are literally the same as the aspects for Raszageth, the Mortals. He was also the oldest and presumably the most powerful out of all of them. I'm guessing as we learn more about this ancient war, this guy is going to be like Galakrond 2.0, but possibly a lot more powerful. Maybe a Galakrond after Galakrond. So with all this bunch of information that is kinda all over the place, let me just put my really loose theory on what this could be. Initially, there were proto-dragons and both the old gods and the Titans wanted to influence him, but the Titan Keepers didn't really care all that much about them. Well, Galakrond was successful. He was kind of grasping at every straw he could get because he was imprisoned, and he created a big problem with Galakrond. So Titans decided that now they need to align the dragons, otherwise they will prove a threat in the future. So Galakrond was defeated and the dragon aspects arose. This was also why Odin didn't really like the dragons. He didn't really want to do this. Now, the Primalists may have realized that the ways of Galakrond might not have been so bad, and instead of willingly aligning with the second corruption of the water source, the Titan one, they wanted to align with the first corruption of the water source, the old god one. So the elemental old god affiliated aspects fought the Titan affiliated ones, and the Titans won, and apparently some terrible war happened. Now, as Deathwing, as an aspect of the Earth as well, he might have figured out a few things over the years behind the scenes, and that power that he used could have been the power of Iridikron, which is why he hid it from the other aspects. Seeing that we got the Alderman books that literally show us that the Black Empire had advancements of their own, that the Titans had hid purposefully and deleted from history, maybe that initial Galakrond corruption wasn't so bad as we're told, and it might have actually aligned better with the actual dragon nature. Think about it, in the new books, they literally talk about how they must just delete all positive history of the Black Empire to hide all their advancements and all the positive stuff, and they need to paint them as just completely all-out evil, like they are the devil and there is literally not a single redeeming quality about them. Now, of course, the old gods are definitely not the good guys, they're not nice, but they are, after all, just actual beings of chaos, and chaos is the natural state for them. If you remember the old history, Azeroth really was a mess before, and the elementals and the elemental lords were constantly just at war with each other, so it is possible that chaos was the natural state for our planet as well. Like, originally, if the dragons are related to the original elementals, maybe chaos or the old gods were closer to their true selves than order ever really was. Deathwing could have learned that through his counterpart Iridikron and attempted to continue his legacy, but as a Titan being, he might not have had the fortitude to just bear these old god powers and to control them in the right way, and that is really why he had been driven insane. Now, Iridikron is obviously going to be a crucial part of the new expansion, potentially the major villain. Personally, I honestly think it would be boring if we just fought one Incarnate every single patch. It would just be incredibly predictable, so I think this guy is going to be like a bridge to like an old god boss or some type of void influence. I doubt he's going to be a major villain himself, but through him we can learn more about Deathwing, more about Galakrond, the old gods, and just the overall history of Azeroth and the dragons in general. In my opinion, this guy Iridikron seems like potentially the most interesting character right now out of pretty much whatever Blizzard came up with these past few years. Although that's not really all that hard, as a jailer was one of these new creations. Although, to be realistic, they did come up with an Atreus, which was a pretty good character. It was a pretty good match. Of course, we still don't really know anything concrete, but this could turn out to be a start of a really great new storyline that I feel like will really let us learn a lot more about who the dragon aspects really are, what is their origin, and what really happened behind the scenes. Like, what is the actual history, not what we were told by the Titans, not all these lies. And that really could be the start of this new era of lore, this new era of World of Warcraft that the Blizzard has talked about that Dragonflight will apparently originate. Thank you for watching. Check out if you could Lightforge or Voidforge, all the currently available releases by clicking on the screen, and check out Donut's Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.